Video is going to be about using routes in Dart and Flutter as well. So we have in the previous video we actually talk about how to do the navigation using the navigation.pop and then .push. But this, let's use the route navigation type, where if you have several screens in your application, you can use this to actually navigate through other word pages. Okay, so this is the basic source code you see when you actually create a Flutter project. Good. So let me keep this very simple by actually thinking of all this. But before that, let me see. Okay, so let me clear everything in here, and then we keep it simple because we want to go straight to the point and then be able to understand what we are doing. Okay, so let let us add. First, I'm gonna create two new files, and this let's remove this constant here, and let's get rid of our tests. Yeah, no need. Okay, good. So what we're going to do here is actually add uh, add a two page to this. So let me add one page here. We will say probably this will be our home screen. Yeah, just to learn how to navigate using the routes. Okay, in Flutter. Okay, so that's that. So I have one page here, and I'm gonna add another extra two. So let's call this probably we'll say the first screen first. Then we add the screen. We add that to this. Okay, and then let's say we have another one being second. Yeah, we just been making having more pages in your project. So second. So we say second what screen dot that. Okay. Okay, so now we are using this just for example, and just to show how you can actually use your route to actually navigate between complex projects. So we say we have the main dot that, and then we have our first screen, we have our home screen, and then we have our second screen. Okay, so for this main dot that, what we're gonna do is to actually use the route here. So if you have your run up here, we can simply create a stateless widget. So I'm gonna use the shortcut to create the stateless widget here, and here will be what my app. Okay, so for this one, what we'll do is to use the route. So to use the route, we need to actually return a container or a material that here, so that it will move us to our first home screen. Good. So to do that, I'll simply add a material that here to return a material. Let me use MaterialApp here. Good. And inside here, this is our main, but we want our default page anytime we open the app is to navigate us to the home screen as the let's say the root or the first page to see before we can now move to the other two pages. Okay, so first we want to use the root type. We don't want to use the pop and then the push. So how we'll do this is to actually have what we call the roots here. So let's start with roots this way. Good. And for root, we're gonna have a simple three roots in here. So I have the root, and then I open my curly braces. Inside the curly braces, what we have to do is to actually add which pages we want to navigate to. So basically we use the slash for the default what? The default page we actually want to open anytime the application is run. So first, to call a particular page, we need to use the context in front of the root name. So this will be the context first, and then this context will actually call the page we want our route to actually call when the actual app is being run. So I will say our first what we'll be calling this as our first what our first screen or the default screen. But here, let me create something in here before we can actually call it. So let me just import the Flutter package here. So package, and this is Flutter material. So we call the Flutter material. Then let me create a simple what just a stateless widget is okay. So stateless, and we're gonna call it the home screen. Yeah, we want it to be the default, so I'll call it the home screen. Okay, perfect. So what we'll do is to actually call the class name from this file, and to call the class name, very simple. So just this, you call this here, and this is gonna be the default what or the default page to open whenever your application runs. Okay, so I have this here. Okay, good. But let's actually add something in here. Let me keep it this capital. Okay, so here what we'll do is to actually return a scaffold, and then we'll add some buttons in here. So let me put a scaffold here. Okay, so in our scaffold, what we're gonna add is simply add some buttons in here, and these buttons will only help us navigate to these two screens here. So we're keeping it very simple and straightforward. So we're returning a scaffold, and inside a scaffold, the first thing we want to add is simply add an app bar. Not really necessary, but you can add that to it. So app bar. Okay, so this app bar, we only gonna have our title in here. Yeah, title, and then we call it, let's say, home screen. Okay, home screen. Okay, and this is actually a string, so we need to put this inside the test widget. Okay, then we put this inside a quote. All right, so it's a very simple page. And then what we're gonna do here is, since this is gonna be the page which will help us navigate to these two pages, let us add a simple, I would say, let's add two buttons in here to navigate to the other pages. Okay, so let me add the body of this, and the body will be a center widget. And this center widget will actually have a child with a column. So let's say a child, and then we have a column. Good. And this column will have children. So let me say children, and okay. So our first child will be what? Let's use an expanded button, and this expanded button will simply navigate to the two pages we're gonna have in here. So our first one will be, no, let me use elevated button. Okay, here elevated button. Okay, so for our elevated button, we have the on press, and then we have one child. This child will simply be the text. So let me say we're gonna use a test widget here, test widget, and we'll say move to first screen. Yes, first screen. Okay, perfect. So move to first screen. Okay, this onPress is actually a function, and this is where we actually gonna use our push name route here, or route here. So let me keep this as an empty function for now. Okay, good. So let's actually move back to this page, and so we have our first what? Our first home screen here, and we'll pick that from our class home screen. Okay, good, perfect. Next, what we have to do is to add the other screens to this one, and this is how we call the screens. It's basically the same as this, but we need to make sure we have the names of what? Of the classes we are actually going to create here. So instead to add that, let me simply add this here. Yes, the same, but this will change this one to first screen instead of home screen. So first screen. Okay, first screen, and this will be what? Our first screen. Very simple. Okay, and just call this screen. Okay, so the same, we're gonna do the same thing to this. We just have to add very simple stuff in here, because we don't want to pay attention to what we have in there. We only want to know how to actually use the route to navigate between pages in Flutter. So that's a major concern here. So second, then yeah, screen. Let me keep it very simple. So now we have this. Good. So why I added this is because we actually gonna use this for the names in here. Good. So the second one will be this, our first screen, and we make sure we actually call the first screen in there. So we have screen 1 and then screen 2. So let's say we have first, and then let me add this to this. So we call the first screen. Let me call the second screen. Okay. Okay, perfect. So what we'll do is to actually, we need to import our home screen here, so that the file will know what file it's actually referring to. And then here we need to add a second screen here. Second. Okay. Then we add second here. Perfect. Then I need to import this one so that it knows what file it's working with. Okay, perfect. So now our first route is set, but instead to leave this like this, we need to make sure our route actually knows the initial one to load with. Normally, when we use the normal routing with the navigation and the push, normally we used to keep this like this, like home here, and then we'll add our first word default route like this. So like this. Okay, you can keep it like this and it will work perfectly fine. But since we are using the route or route navigation, why don't we keep it using the initial what? Initial route instead of using the what? The home for this. So let me see. To do that, we actually need to use the initial route for this instead of using the home that I have actually added here. This will work fine, but to keep it in sync with this, or to keep it in other way, why we have the error is because of this that I just added here. So let me comment this and then rerun. Okay, so what I'm saying is this home screen will actually work with this, and it's gonna use this as its what? As its root. But what we have to do is to actually use the initial route to actually have the same formality with this, like this. And no, we need to actually call this one. Yes, so this will be pointing to the initial one. Okay, save. Good. So we actually calling the initial route here. So anytime this app loads, it first opens this page, which is the home what? The home screen. And the home screen only have one button, and this button will be actually navigating it to the other screen. But let me add a second button here where we can easily navigate to the other one as well. So let me say I copy this and then add it here. So this will navigate to the second screen. The second screen, very easy. Okay, I save this. Okay, so we have the second here and then the first here. Okay, so what we'll do is to use the push name to actually navigate to the other screen. So here in terms here using an empty empty function, we need to actually use the navigator.push name. So what we do here is to, after the on press, this here will change to our navigator.push. So let me actually open this, and then we use the same navigation, but this time around what we'll do is to use the what let me start with cap navigator. Then this one dot. After the dot, we have to use what we call the name the push name. This one. Yeah, the first one we only, if we are using the normal navigation, we will use only push. But this we are using the routes. So if we are using the route, then we need to actually call the push name here. So first it has the context, and the root name will actually be the file name that we already have in here. So we want to call this. So simple, we need to call this one here. Very easy. And then we replace it with this. Easy. All right, good. Next, we have to also add the second button here. So instead to have an empty function, we only replace this with the same navigator. So we call the navigator, then we add dot push name. Here will be the context, and here will be the actual file name, and it should be the same as this one. So this is very easy to implement in your project. Okay, then I terminate this. Okay, so basically this is how it's been done. So this same thing can be used with button navigators. It can be used with floating action button and all that, and it's gonna work perfectly fine. So when we click here, it should actually take us to the first screen, and we go back, you click here, it should take us to the second screen. And this is very easy. So first, what we actually did is to have our import of all the files we actually gonna use in the root. And then this is the initial route. I said we could use the home. There's no problem with that. But since we are using the root, why don't we actually follow the same syntactic recommended way? Good. So we can use the home, and then we call the home screen here. This is what we usually do. Good. And this will work perfectly fine. But you can use two of this. If you use this two, it's gonna actually run into an error here. So you need to use one of this. So if you are using the initial route, then you should basically use this, and everything is gonna be fine. So this initial route actually maps to the first default screen you want the user to see when the application loads, and then the other ones are actually the ones you'll be navigating later in the page. So if this goes to the home screen, then in the home screen we have two buttons. One, the first elevator button here, and the second elevated button here. And this actually on the onPress, we do the navigator.push name, the context. It have a parameter of the context and also the name of of the file we actually want to navigate to. So we have the first and then the second screen, and everything works perfectly fine. Good. So this is the end of how to use routes in Flutter. We have how to use the navigator.push and navigator.pop in the other video. We'll also like you to recommend, we'd like you to check that out if you actually do not know how to use that as well. We're gonna end the video and we say peace. Turn on the notification and subscribe and get alert anytime a new video is being uploaded. See you then. Bye.